All right, hello everybody. Today I have a very special guest for you, my good friend and my mentor, Danny J. And Danny has a lot going on all the time. You have an online business, very successful one, and you also have a new podcast and several courses. But today I want to talk about other things than these. You can all check out the podcast later and all the other fun things that Danny's doing. But today I want to talk about adrenal fatigue and hypothalamic amenorrhea and a lot about weight, because I get this question all the time that, when you gain weight after recovering from hypothalamic amenorrhea or adrenal fatigue, what do you do with it later? Is it going to come up? Is it going to stay on? And I understand that it's a big problem for a lot of us. So Danny, why don't you tell us what happened to you?
Yeah. So my background actually is I was a personal trainer. And of course, when you're a trainer, I felt like I had to look the part. So I got into competing because one, I was already fit and I had people asking me like, do you compete? Do you compete? And I didn't even know what that meant. I go, compete in what and what? And I started to find magazines like Oxygen magazine, and I saw these people with like ripped abs and ripped bodies. And I thought that looks really cool. And I thought, I don't think I look like that, but maybe I could do it. So long story short, I started competing, and I actually competed for a good solid 4 years. So my first show I placed top 5. And of course that gave me the incentive to keep going. And so I probably competed multiple times every year after that. And of course, when most people compete, or I'd say a good majority, they'll compete, they'll diet for a show, they'll get really lean, and then they go back to normal eating. But for me, because I came from an eating disorder, and so I felt like the competition diet was like a lifestyle. And so I actually turned it into really, really extreme eating. So I was constantly eating on a plan. I was constantly weighing, measuring my food. I wouldn't go anywhere without any food prepared. And this went on for years and years. And so when I competed, I never went off plan. I was always on plan, always clean, year round. I never fluctuated my weight very much until the last show, where I just was struggling to lose any little bit of weight. I felt like I was eating cleaner than I ever had before, doing more cardio than I ever had before, and my body was resistant. It wasn't changing at all. And I used to be super resistant. I could make a change and I could tell the next day, I felt tighter, I felt leaner. And I was struggling with this, I was really saying what's wrong with me? So of course I did my last show. It was a struggle. I didn't feel like I brought my best package, as they say. And I got out of it, and I just felt like I remember eating a bowl of oatmeal the next day, like a normal half cup, because I would measure it. And I gained a couple of pounds overnight. I think it was 8 pounds overnight after a cup of oatmeal. And I'm going, oh my God, I can't eat carbs anymore. How could I gain 8 pounds eating a cup of oatmeal? Of course, looking back, it was water weight, but I was mentally just messed up by all of this dieting. And I got to the point where I thought I couldn't eat carbs. I was afraid of food. I was training constantly, literally just doing so much cardio to try to keep it down. And I thought that I was the kind of person, no matter what I ate, I would just gain weight. I thought it was my genetics. And then as a couple months went by, I gained 30 pounds in 2 months. And I thought, maybe I've got a thyroid problem. And I started Googling things and finding out thyroid conditions. And I was yes, I have those symptoms. And so I went to a doctor, I got thyroid medication, didn't help. It wasn't helping me lose any weight. And honestly, this probably went on for about 2 years before I really knew what was happening, because I kept trying to find new diets and new ways to lose weight. I'm going, okay, well, maybe I just need a new coach. Maybe I just need a new diet. Maybe I need new medication. Maybe I need another doctor. And for about 2 years, I was in this trying to lose the weight that I had put on, gaining more, trying to lose, gaining more, trying to lose, gaining more. And I was starting to find things, and this is what's interesting with HA. I'm never going to be able to say it. HA, adrenal fatigue, metabolic damage. They also have this, what I read about was called HPA, hypothalamus pituitary axis dysfunction, I guess. All of those things, they were really new, and a lot of disagreement of what really exists. So I started to think that I had adrenal fatigue. Some coaches out there were calling it metabolic damage. Some of these coaches were arguing with doctors, saying there's no such thing as one and no such thing as the other. All I knew was something was happening to me, and I'm y'all say that nothing is wrong, but something is wrong.
Right.
Because I can't figure out what's happening with my body. Mm-hmm. I remember specifically going to a doctor when I had gained probably at this point like 15, 20 pounds. And mind you, prior to this, I had always had an easy time with my weight. Never had weight problems, never struggled with yo-yo dieting. I went to a doctor and I said, I gained all this weight. And he said, you just need to exercise more and eat less. And I was like, I wanted to kill him because I knew, like, I had written down everything I'd been eating. I was eating probably between 900 and 1100 calories a day, which is ridiculous. And then exercising 2 to 4 hours a day. Mm-hmm. So when he told me to eat less and exercise more, I was like, what else can I do? Like, I either don't eat at all and then I exercise 6 hours a day. Like, that doesn't make sense. So I was frustrated with the medical community. My lab said everything was fine. And I'm like, everything's not fine. But long story short is that I finally got to a place where I realized a little bit more of what was going on with my body. There was a site called drlam.com, L-A-M, and I ordered his book. It was like this big book about adrenal fatigue. And I studied and I went to some naturopathic doctors. And it's funny because what happened with my weight gain was when I let go of trying to lose it, that's when the weight gain stopped. Mm-hmm. Now, it didn't come off right away. And I think a lot of people struggle with, like, I want to just get it off now. I maintained for a long time. But to me at that point, after 2 years of feeling like I was just gaining and struggling and fighting the scale and trying so hard to not gain and yet I was gaining, for me to just plateau was like, oh my gosh, thank God. So I'm like, we just need to stay here. Like, just don't keep me going. Yeah. So, but what I did honestly was I hate to see it, but I kind of quit. I read this quote that I'd seen over and over and over, and it was, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Yes. And I was doing the same thing over and over and I was expecting different results. And so it just clicked one day and I go, I have to do something different. So I was thinking, I'm just going to do the opposite. So everybody's saying eat less, exercise more. I'm going to exercise less and eat more. Yeah. And I just stopped working out and I started eating more. And I remember I was telling myself to not get on the scale, but I did anyway, because I was going, this isn't going to work. I bet I gained 20 pounds overnight. Right. And I hadn't gained anything. And that the night before I ate like this giant bowl of spaghetti, like carbs at night at 10 p.m. So I was sure that I gained, I gained 8 pounds from eating oatmeal. So I was like, I'm definitely gaining 20 pounds from eating spaghetti. Nothing changed. And I was confused. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. So I kept doing that. I just kept going, okay, I'm going to eat what I want and I'm not going to work out. And slowly, and it did take a long time, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, but slowly, my body got to just chill, mm-hmm. right? It got out of that fight or flight and constant, I don't know, I'm going to say it just was constantly firing and freaking out mm-hmm. to where it calmed down. And then slowly the weight gain came down. But I think too, where I got to the point was if I never lost any of the weight, where I was mentally, I would not trade it. Mm-hmm. So I could have been the same, I could have that weight gain permanently and I would have actually been okay because it was way too much work and way too much of my mental energy and way too much of my life to try to maintain eating so little and working out so much. It was not sustainable at all. I was like, I'm going to die doing this. Mm-hmm. I'm going to die because I don't have time. I'm exhausted. One of the last times I went to the gym before I quit was I went to do some lateral raises and I picked up a 5-pound dumbbell and I could hardly lift it. Right. And I was like, I'm so exhausted. So then I tried the 3 and I was like, I did 3 reps and I couldn't do it. So then I go, okay, I'm not going to lift. I'm going to go do cardio. I went on the stair mill. I used to be able to put it on level 10 easily. I put it on level 5 and I kept having to stop it every 20 seconds and rest. I put on level 3 and I had to stop it. And then I just got off and I walked out and I didn't go back in the gym for months after that because I just couldn't do it.
Was it pretty gradual how it happened to you? When you couldn't do the things that you used to be able to do at the gym, or did it happen just pretty suddenly?
I felt like it probably was gradual, but I didn't notice it because I'm the kind of person that would push through. Right. When you have that mentality of I grew up a gymnast, and so my coaches were always like, if you hurt, just do it anyway. Like, we were always encouraged to just push past pain.
Yes.
We were also encouraged to, like, if you broke your leg, you still went to gymnastics and you did bars. If you broke your arms, you still went to gymnastics and you did beam or floor or something else. Like, if you had a missing limb, you do the other things that the other limb doesn't use, or you do conditioning. So I just had this mentality of, well, if it's hard, just push through it. Or maybe you're just having a hard day, you'll be better tomorrow. So I feel like I ignored a lot of cues that my body was giving me. So it probably was more gradual than I remember, but it felt like it was pretty sudden. It felt like a short amount of time. And yeah, it's hard to say because I think that I just pushed through so much of my body being like, stop, 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 stop. And then it was like, okay, stop.
Yes. No, I can relate to that because I had a really similar experience. I had always been able to work out no matter what.
Yeah.
By myself, I didn't need any company or anything like, okay, let's go. I never needed it. But then it got to a point where it's like, I just can't. I don't enjoy it anymore. And I can't make myself to go to the gym and work out anymore. Yeah. And this is where I knew that something's really wrong. Yeah. So I think it just like, it was slow, but then it was like, boom. Yeah. I'm done.
Yeah. Right? My friend, she says her dad says, gradually, suddenly. And it was, kind of like that. But same thing with the mental motivation. I never had an issue going to the gym. I never struggled with that. Like I wanted to, I looked forward to it. And one of the last few days, I remember driving to the gym, sitting in the parking lot, turning my keys off. And I just was like I just psyched myself to get up and psyched myself to go in. And at one point I cried for like 20 minutes before going in. I'm like, just do it. You have to. And it was like this big struggle. And a big chunk of why I started switching my brand was I had to go back. So my business, like I was a personal trainer and I'm going, this is my job and I hate it. And I hate being at the gym and I hate all of it. And I thought, I had to go back to why did I start this? And I asked myself these questions. Like I started this because I loved it. I started this because I feel good. I need to do something I enjoy. So stepping away and give myself a break too allowed me to almost like miss it. You know, sometimes if you're around somebody so much, you're like, you get on each other's nerves, you get some space and you come back and miss each other. Yeah. I think I needed that too. I needed the break because I did not enjoy myself anymore. I actually not only did not enjoy it, I dreaded it. It made me like anxious to even think that the whole day would be ruined. If I knew I had to work out at 4, I'd be thinking about it all morning of like, I got to go to the gym soon. And just the mental energy it spent all day thinking about what I need to do. That was a lot in itself.
No, totally. Yeah. So what kind of other symptoms you got? You were exhausted. What else?
Yeah, I'd say, initially what I noticed was the weight gain because that's what I was focused on, of course. But I think that it's funny. Yeah. My period stopped, which actually to me, I thought that was cool because I was like, oh, cool. I don't want to deal with tampons.
Nobody wants to. Right?
Yeah. Funny enough, though, because when I started healing, I worked with a naturopathic physician, Jade, and we started on some like herbal supplements and things like that. And I was reading about the period stuff. And it was funny because I was reading about how like your bones, like calcium would be pulled out of your bones. And I would have these days where I would say this to my husband. I'm like, I go, can you just squeeze my arm? And he's like, what? I go, I just need you to, I wanted him to squeeze my forearms all the time. And he goes, why? You need a massage? I'm like, no. I said, my bones ache. He's like, what do you mean your bones ache? I'm like, he's like, your muscles? I'm like, no, my bones ache in my wrists and my arms and like my lower legs. I just felt like my bones were constantly aching and I needed to squeeze and to put pressure on them. And when I started talking to Jade, I read about how it can take calcium out of your bones. And one of the first things that came back was my period. He's like, cool, this is a good sign. He's like, first it's your period, or first it's your ovaries, then it's your thyroid, then your adrenals. So if we can get your ovaries on track first, then we're going to get your thyroid on track, then your adrenal gland. So it was like this chain of command. So I knew that a good sign was getting my period back. And so I took it as a good sign. And it was interesting because as soon as my period started coming back, the bone stuff, like the aching stopped.
So funny.
So I just like, that was definitely something that I totally felt like when I'm thinking about it now, squeezing my arm, I'm like, I don't need that feeling, but I remember just needing my arms to be like compressed because it felt achy.
Yeah.
So the achiness, the weight gain, my skin, like I had breakouts all over my face, all over my shoulders, all over my chest. My skin was just terrible. It was itchy too. I don't know if it was just from the breaking out or whatever. My skin was itchy. Sleep. So this didn't happen initially, but towards the end, I would wake up in the morning, but it would take me hours to fully like cognitively be awake. So I could be downstairs talking to you, but I was not awake. Yeah. And maybe take 2 hours to like really wake up, and then I would work. And around noon, I just needed a nap. I was like only awake for a couple hours, and then I'm exhausted again. Yeah. And so I would take a nap, and sometimes my naps, I think, oh, I'll take a 20-minute nap, and I would end up sleeping for 2 hours, 4 hours. And I'm like, it's 6 o'clock at night. Like, where is everybody? Is it morning? Do I sleep all night? I mean, I just didn't know. Yeah. So it was constantly exhaustion in the day. And then at night, I wouldn't go to bed until like 10, 11, 12, 1. It was almost like I didn't try to go to sleep, but I felt like I wasn't tired at night. Mm-hmm. So there was that. There was a lot of just dry skin, itchy stuff like thyroid. And that's why I think it could get mixed up too, where I Googled all of these thyroid symptoms of low thyroid, and I had a lot of those symptoms of like dry skin and hair and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think emotionally, like no sex drive, mm-hmm. zero. I was married, and my husband, like we said the other day, I was like, I would rather be punched in the face than even think about having sex, which made me feel terrible. Yeah. Because I'm like, we're married and I'm not doing what I should be doing, or like, but I just didn't want to. One, I felt uncomfortable in my body. So I didn't want him to see my body because I felt like overweight. I felt like I was sloppy or something. Mm-hmm. But besides that, I didn't feel good about it. Like I could feel that. I was like numb from the waist down. Like I didn't want it to be touched. I didn't want to be kissed. Like if he kissed me on the neck, I'm like, mm-hmm. just get away from me. Mm-hmm. So that was a big thing. And a lot of just anxiety and depression, just constantly on edge. Mm-hmm. Constantly on edge. And then constantly depressed because I felt like I should be working out. I should be doing this, and I'm not. Mm-hmm. So I think I was constantly just beating myself up. And that caused me to feel depressed.
Right. That's interesting what you said about your period returning, but you still had a lot of work to do, right?
Yeah.
For your thyroid to catch up, for your adrenals to catch up.
Yep.
So I see that a lot when women tell me that, okay, my period is back, I'm recovered. No. I'm like, yes, it's a nice thought, but you're actually not there yet. And then the question is always, okay, my period's here, I gained all this weight, am I ready to start dropping it now? So what would you say about that? Like intentional dropping your calories, adding back exercise, like right after you get first symptoms?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So it's so funny because of course I went through that of like, as soon as my period's back, I'm like, cool, I'm better. Let's work out again and let's drop the weight. It just swung me right. It's like this pendulum swing. So I did that where I was starting to feel better, starting to get a little more energy. So I'm like, yes, I'm going to go back to the gym. And literally for me, it happened quick, like within 2 or 3 days, I just went right back to just feeling like crap, like hitting a wall fast. And so it was like 3 steps forward and then like 10 steps back. Right. And so I had to learn, and I did this a couple times, probably 2 or 3 times where I was like, good, I feel good. I'm going to go back. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to get on a diet. And then it was like, boom. So I finally realized that I needed to give myself way more time and be patient. And I wish, knowing what I know now, how long it took, it would have taken me way less time had I been patient and listened to my body. But I was so wanting to force it because it was summertime or we're going to an event and I want to look good for it. It made it worse. It made it worse. So I would tell people, it's so hard to say be patient, but it is so necessary. I would have waited. It's like, you look at the things in the grand scheme of things, like the time is going to pass regardless. So you can either have the time pass and 2 years from now you could still be struggling, or you can have the time pass and 2 years from now you can be thriving and feeling better. If it's, let's just say, get in your head, if it's going to take 2 years, you can make it turn to 4 years or longer, or you can be done in 2 years. Yes. The hard thing is that we think 2 years is so long and it's not. And I'm not saying it's going to take 2 years, but it could. Mm-hmm. And it could take way longer if you keep messing around with it.
Oh my God, I would just go back and listen to it again. Because this is so important. This is so important.
Oh
It's just,
my gosh.
you don't come out of this like super quick. Now,
No.
there are a couple of people who
Yeah.
maybe can do it, but most of us are like really messed up. If
Well,
we have done something like you had done.
And I will tell you this too, it comes back so easier.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you know my lifestyle, I travel a lot. And so I just, right before this, I took a nap because when I travel a bunch, it starts to come back for me. And I know now that I recognize the symptoms. And so as soon as I start to feel some of the things again, I cut back on training, I go back to sleeping more, I get back on my supplements, and I give myself a break again. So right now I haven't worked out all week, and I know that I probably shouldn't. Like, I'll walk if I need to. I might do some like easy squats or something like that. Like, but I'm not going to go crazy because I can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And the blessing that came out of this was that I learned to listen to my body. I never listened to my body before. I ignored it. I pushed through. It was hard. I did it anyway. And now I'm like, okay, your body is smart.
Yeah.
It knows what it needs. And I think one of the things that came to me was I was thinking about when I was a child. And I'm like, when I was 5 years old or 4 years old, I didn't have to think about what I was eating. I just liked to play. I liked to move. I would run in the house when I'm hungry, and then I would just eat so I could go play again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't even think about food because you're playing, and your parents are like, you need to eat. And you're like, I don't want to. I want to move. So I was going, okay, when I was 4 years old, my body knew. When I was 5 years old, my body knew. When I was 6, and I was like, at what point did I start thinking I knew better than my body?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it came with puberty and with gymnastics and with my mom, and like hearing dieting things. But I think at some point, whatever age, it could be later for some people, maybe in college, maybe they're running or something, but at some point we start to not trust our own bodies and think we know better. And your body got you so far, so it knows what to do.
Yeah.
So resting, even when you start to feel like you can go,
mm-hmm.
It's like resist that urge, like push it, and I'd say you can try pushing it a little bit, but as soon as you feel that resistance or you swing back, it's like, okay, never mind.
And nothing horrible happened to you, right? When you slow down and when you,
No.
I mean, now you're working out, you just told me the other day, 3 days a week about that, right? So, and you're probably not less fit than you were.
No, I'm actually really
more,
strong.
Right?
Yes. I'm actually really strong. And, as far as nothing bad happened, everything bad was in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Everything bad was my own idea that people weren't going to love me if I wasn't fit, that people weren't going to accept me if I wasn't in shape, that I was going to lose all my clients if I didn't look perfect, that my marriage was going to fall apart if I didn't have abs. None of that happened. And if it did, if my husband left me because I didn't have abs, then it's probably not the person I should have been with. Or if my friends were like, hey, we can't talk to you because you're not that in shape.
Right.
That's not the kind of friends I needed. But what it did give me was I had to focus on something else. So I realized that I was running, like I was using fitness to avoid other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was using exercise to avoid other things that were going on in my life, or the things that had happened in my past that I chose not to deal with.
Yeah.
So I used the time, and this was the part of the tricky thing, and maybe you can relate too, is like if you're training, let's say for a marathon, and you're running 2 hours a day, suddenly you have 2 hours a day, you're like, what do I do with my time?
Mm-hmm.
I was training 2 to 4 hours a day. Suddenly I'm not training 2 to 4 hours a day, and I'm like anxious.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? What do I do all day? So I started to read. I started to try to find other hobbies. Like I signed up for a dance class, which didn't last very long, but I needed to find something else to do with my time.
Mm-hmm.
And doing that helped me open up my mind in different ways and realize I had other skills besides just being a hot body, besides being just six-pack abs.
It can't be your life goal, right?
No.
To be this person with abs. Right?
No. And the other thing too is I was so worried about abs, but I didn't walk around with my shirt off, so who knew that I even had them except me? I was like, I always have shirts on. It wasn't like I was walking around like, look at my abs, look at my abs. So what was the point? It's like you have them and nobody sees them, so why even have them?
So I think this, your recovery, I mean, the 2 years that you took off from the gym, this was the time when you were traveling around the country, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about that. Your diet, your exercise, which was non-existent, but I just want you to tell people so that they can see that losing weight happens in a totally different way than what we think.
Totally. So it started a little before I started traveling around the country. So my ex and I, we bought an RV and we traveled around the country for about a year. I stopped working out before that, but then I kind of went back for a little bit, and it wasn't helping me lose weight at all, for sure. But we started going around the country, and to be honest, consistency was really hard because we were in another city almost every other week, and we didn't have a gym. So it was kind of the best thing for me because I had no choice. I mean, I did have a choice. I could have gotten up and ran every morning or done stuff like if I thought I needed to. But we weren't eating the best. What was really interesting was I found what happened was I dropped about 5 pounds really suddenly, and then I plateaued for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And then I dropped 5 pounds, and then I plateaued for a couple of months. And I dropped 1 or 2 pounds, and then I plateaued. So I never intentionally lost the weight. I just started living my life. I just started being active or just walking. My stress was way down. And as the weight was coming off, it was interesting because before I would have been like, oh, it's coming off. I need to do more to get this off. But instead I kind of took this mentality of like, well, that's interesting. Like it was more of an observer of going, okay, look at what your body's doing. And then I stopped and I was like, okay, I wonder what I was doing different. And then I lose some more and I'm like, okay, interesting. I lost a few pounds, but I just took off the pressure and the trying.
Yeah.
And it was not, like I told you the other day too, the first time I heard like, just stop trying. So I remember I was like, okay, in my head, I'm like, I'm not going to try. Then I get on the scale, like maybe if I say I'm not trying, I'll lose the weight. But it didn't work. It was like, I actually literally had to let go of the attachment to it. And part of that was getting rid of clothes that didn't fit, that were too small, like wearing things that were just comfortable. So I wasn't forcing myself into it, and just actually letting go of, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, great. I'm going to be okay no matter what. And now I know I have enough self-worth and I like myself enough that if I never lose the weight, I'll be okay. And if I do, I won't.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So you dropped your weight in 2 years, you said, right?
Yeah.
About 2 years.
Yeah. And
So
not all of it. Like I'd say I'm still above my old set weight.
Yeah.
A few pounds over, but I imagine, and I've thought this before, I'm like, I bet I could get there if I needed to drop the 5 to 7 pounds. But to me, I'm like, why? Now why?
Yeah.
Because I was in a different size. So I won't change sizes of clothes. I actually get, I mean, you've seen, I get to drink more alcohol. I eat fun food. I'm not constantly mentally wrapped up in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So for me, the mental freedom of having that versus another 5 pounds is just not worth it.
Yes.
It's not worth it. Even 20 pounds, 20 pounds, I don't want even
Right.
deal with all that.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. It's so true. You free up so much space. You have room for more relationships,
Totally.
more fun things, more nights out
Yeah.
that you could never afford because you always had to be in the gym like 6 a.m. whatever, right?
And same, relationships are really crucial because I would say during that time, I never had true deep connections with people. I remember going out to eat and just constantly like looking at the time, like people would be talking to me and I'd hear and I'd be nodding my head, but I wasn't there. I wasn't present.
This is so human. So keep going, but
I wasn't present at all. I was thinking about, I was looking at their food, like, are they going to finish that on their plate? I want to eat it, but I can't. And then like my food, am I eating too much or do I need to see what time it is so I can eat again? I mean, the whole time I would be anxious. I couldn't just go have a coffee with a girlfriend or go out to a movie, or I couldn't do anything because I was always on edge thinking about my stuff and my food and what I needed to do. That I had friendships, but I would say I never deeply connected with friends, where now I have solid, like really, really deep friendships and relationships. And I feel like I've gone deep with people because I have the mental energy to do it. Before it was surface level stuff. Even me, I'm embarrassed because I bet people who knew me back then might've been like, yeah, Danny, she's like, she doesn't give a shit about you. You know, I like to think that when I meet people, I make them feel warm and welcome and that I'm like listening, where I would be looking you in the eye and just be like, and in my head, a million miles away.
Oh my God, so familiar. Like I remember literally one time when I was like trying to count my Weight Watchers point on like a tablespoon of peas.
Oh my God.
Like, should I not?
Yeah.
Like, what should I do?
Yeah.
And this is what I never want back anymore.
Totally.
It's just, it was insane.
Totally.
Yeah, not worth it.
Yeah, and just the stress too. I got invited to go to things and I would actually say no because I didn't even want the stress of the thought like, going to a place where they would bring bread to the table or something. And I would just be like, the anxiety of thinking if it's sitting there and everyone's eating the bread and I'm just staring at it and just waiting for them to take it away.
Yeah.
Or just like, what if I do? And then I'm like, I go home pissed off and now I got to go to the gym, which I didn't want to do. Like now I got to go work it off. Yeah. I would just say, no, I would lie and be like, I'm busy. I can't. Yeah. I would just make up stories because I couldn't even, that was so much stress to even think about the scenario. I knew I wasn't going to have fun. I knew I wasn't going to get the jokes. I wasn't going to connect with people. Because I wasn't going to be all there. I was going to be just getting like white knuckling my way through the whole meal.
Yes.
So yeah, the weight came off slowly, unintentionally. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally like 1 pound at a time. Like if I could give you a time frame, it would have been like 5 pounds a year. Mm-hmm. So, which most people are like, oh, if you do your calories, you can lose 2 pounds a week.
Yeah. Well, you can also get your symptoms back, right?
Totally.
Just do it quickly. And
you can.
Fatigue and your HA.
I would have rather lost 5 pounds a year any day than try to lose 10 pounds in a month and gain it all back again. Yeah. Because it got too tiring.
Yeah.
Way too much.
So one more thing I want to ask you, what would you tell to women who are struggling with body acceptance when they're like, it's easy for you, Dani, to say because you look so good, but what do I do? I'm like, so big, so overweight, so unattractive. How on earth can I accept myself?
So it's funny you say that because when I first heard it, it was Gabby Bernstein. I don't know if you know who she is, but she's beautiful, thin, small, petite. And she was on stage at, I don't know if she was doing a book launch or something, and she was talking about loving your body first, because I think she struggled with an eating disorder. And she said she had to love her body first before she could get into the body she had. And I'm like, oh, bitch, easy for you to say because you're skinny. And I sat with that because it was just like this projection onto her. And I was so angry, actually, that she said that. And I was like, oh, it's so easy for you.
She doesn't have the right to say
that.
Yeah. She knows.
Yes. Yeah. And then I thought, I actually don't know what she looked like in the past. I don't know what she struggled with. And I was like, maybe she's right. But I think the mental part and the mental piece is so big, you have to find a way to get through that. So whether it's counseling, and I did EFT, I learned how to do tapping, I did hypnotherapy, and I think that was really big for me. And I think it's worth to try any of these things because our brains are wired. Like we create habits by doing something over and over and over and over again. So when you have these thoughts that are repetitive, they're not easy to just go like, I hate myself, I love myself. Like that's not an easy line to cross. So doing hypnotherapy helped me rewire some of these old thought patterns because I don't think you can do that overnight. I think it takes time. I don't know if hypnotherapy works for everyone. It helped me a lot. And I think that was a big way for me to shift and actually let go of the idea before it manifested, if that's a good way to say it. And just reading books. I don't want to say like spiritual books, but just things that make you focus more on the inside versus the outside. So I read more personal development books, and I read more books on your spirit and the inner game versus the outer game. I think there was actually a book called Working In, Working Out, something like that, that I also read that I had to work on the inner stuff. So yeah, I would say to the person who's like, that's easy for you to say, I go, yeah, I get it. Because it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And I would say start with books, start with counseling, start with EFT, start with hypnotherapy, meditations. You have to do some rewiring in your brain before you can you don't just wake up one day, look in the mirror, and you're like, I am amazing. Yes. You don't. And there's still days where I'm just like, oh, and it comes back. But I have enough awareness now to go, okay, like, Dani, shut your mouth. Like, you're fine. Or you've been sloppy for a little bit. Like, you can get back on track. Just cut back on drinking so much all the time. Like, I know now that I can handle it. And two, that it's not life or death. Like, I'm not losing my friends and family if I gain a few pounds or if I can't put my pants on one day.
Yeah. Totally. All right. So this has been super fun, so helpful. So is there anything you want to add? Maybe something that I didn't ask, but you think it's important to add?
I think just the biggest thing is have patience. I think that working on the inner stuff is so big. So is that if you can take the energy that you put into training and working out and put that into working on your inside, your heart, your mind, you will heal so much faster. And it really is like everyone who goes through this, honestly, I would say you already have discipline. You have drive. Like you wouldn't be in this position if you weren't disciplined, driven, all of these like positive things, but the positives can turn into a negative. And if you can just take that energy, the drive, the discipline that it took to get your body where you want it to be into like really knowing yourself and learning who you are and going, I'm badass regardless of what I look like, then you will get through this so fast and actually be grateful that this happened to you. And I know years ago, if somebody said, you'd be happy this happened, I was like, no way. But now I am so grateful that it happened.
Yeah.
Because I know myself better in and out. I know my body better. I recognize how I feel. And I would just say like these people who are watching this, I know what kind of people you are. Like you're strong, driven, powerful women. So like use that for good.
That's such a great advice. Yes. Put your energy in a
Yeah.
better place, right?
Totally.
For now, it's better for you and for your body right now.
Totally.
So tell us also where we can find you and tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, so the Best Life Podcast, it is on iTunes and Stitcher, and I don't know where else, Google Play. And then, of course, I'm on Instagram the most. It's at DannyJ.com, and it's DANNY like a boy. DannyJ and .com spelled DOTCOM. That's where I am the most. If you find me there, then you'll find the podcast and everything.
Go follow her, especially the stories. She's very
Oh, yeah. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.